Hello and welcome to today's session, a demonstration on the topic of developing a bespoke chatbot design tool to facilitate crowd-based creation. So we're going to be looking at a process using an application that a team of us have been working on, and we've been doing this work as part of a European Erasmus Plus funded project called the CEPEH project. And the CEPEH project basically is about developing chatbots using AI, and we're looking to promote innovative practices in this particular area, but with a focus on healthcare and open education. So our partners involved in the project, we all have a medicine and healthcare focus, and we've come together in this strategic partnership to work on which is now a almost 3.5 years project to develop these chatbots. But what has been challenging, and some of the things that have come out of this project have led us to present what we're going to show you today. But it's important just to understand where the background of this all came from. So it's this project, we've been involved in developing projects, developing chatbots. And so we've been, in order to develop our chatbots, we've been using an Aspire framework, which we've had to adapt a little bit or modify for developing chatbots. Now, the Aspire framework stands for aims, storyboarding, population, implementation, release, and evaluation. And each of those steps, as you can sort of see, are laid out, and that's a typical workflow that we have for developing reusable learning objects. And we're talking about 15 minutes worth of learning. We get communities involved to help us develop those resources, as you can see in some of the pictures there. So everything from a storyboarding session right through to implementing the resources to be online, tested using a range of mobile devices and so on. So, and as you can see, our resources have been deployed and taken up through many regions of the world actually. And you could see an example of one of our websites where our open resources sit in HELM Open. And really the chatbot is no different from the type of resources that we want to be developing. We wanted to develop some educational chatbots for healthcare with really small bits of learning, but to try and focus on a single kind of learning aim or topic has been very difficult, and that has allowed us to ask some questions about the development process for chatbots and what needs to be adapted in order to make this more successful. So for example, we had one storyboarding workshop with some students, and we were looking at elements to do with undertaking a literature review. Now obviously it's quite a vast subject area, but it was very difficult to get the students to think in terms of creating, I suppose, the terminology, the language, even the kind of interactions that we'd expect the chatbot to be providing and engaging with the learner. Very, very difficult actually, because suddenly the conversation easily became another thing, and it was hard to kind of focus on that singular aim. So basically this process that we've been using, Aspire, is great for developing your traditional online sequential learning resources, but we found for chatbots where there is that unpredicted behaviour sometimes from the learner, you don't know what you're going to expect as an input, quite difficult actually for our community or stakeholders to work with in this scenario. So this led us to consider how we could adapt this Aspire process. As I say, we did consider mainly around the storyboarding stage as being causing the most challenge, trying to engage stakeholders, whereas normally it would be easy to get the flip chart and pens and paper out to do some storyboarding in that sense. Particularly recently, obviously with the COVID pandemic, very difficult to get people together in a room, in an online, in an environment together. So we figured, we could look to online mechanisms, but actually this presented us with a great opportunity to think about how we can capture data in a crowd-based way for the development of the chatbots. So as you can see here, although some of it's behind the image of myself, apologies, but they're a very complex application that we decided we were going to put together. Now I should say complex in the sense that this would be something that would be behind the scenes. The learners wouldn't have to face any of this complex sort of model interaction with forms and the database in order to gather data. We didn't want learners to be exposed with that, because the chatbot terminology, the way the output is created for this is based on a lot of natural language understanding techniques, terminology such as intents and responses, and really we don't want stakeholders who are not who are not sort of technical minded people to be faced with that. So we wanted to create an application that was going to give an interface that would allow us to get the information in a crowd-based way, allow people to co-create in the development of a chatbot, but not face the difficulty of trying to understand how a chatbot works and what would be needed for that. So as you can see in the middle now, we've got an application built, and this is what I'm going to demonstrate in a moment, with a very simple form input, structured in a way that will hopefully allow the learner, stakeholder, subject expert to very easily put in some data without them hopefully even realise that they're contributing in many a way. So they could put in a question or statement for the chatbot, decide whether they think what the type of response they would expect from it, and maybe the variety of responses that would be, and perhaps just the chance to tag it with a keyword. And so that breaks down hopefully a lot of the complexities involved with looking at the chatbot. So I'm now just going to take you through a more in-depth look at the crowd-based chatbot implementation tool that we've built, and hopefully you'll start to see how this all gets pieced together. So I'm going to just log in now using my administrative privileges, just so you can see the whole, get a picture of the whole system really. First of all, there is a nice welcome introduction at the top of the page, and then there is the ability to find and search for any chatbot that you wish to design that might be part of the system. And over on the right hand side there is a list of the most recently updated chatbots. And as we can see there's a range of different chatbots we're currently working on in healthcare at the moment. So there's some for dentistry and other healthcare topics. But to search for a chatbot, we could just type in an example like tech into this search box, and straight away it's brought up some chatbots associated with the keyword beginning with tech. And we can click to add detail to any one of those. So if we look at the first one called Alison, which is a topic of cybersecurity, we'll take you through the steps of what it is like as a learner or a student to add data to this. So first of all, we're presented with this form about adding some conversation detail. Now again, the student or the learner doesn't have to be concerned with what is involved in creating a chatbot at this moment in time. They simply just have to answer the questions in the form, and there are examples here on the right hand side to support that. So first of all, let's give an example question or statement to the chatbot where we could say, how will you help me learn about cybersecurity? And make that a question. So then we can add a variation to this, same kind of statement, but just worded slightly differently. So we could just put help me with cybersecurity. So in the first one, you'll notice that we've put it in a question format. In the second added option response, it's more like a demand or a statement, I suppose. Help me with cybersecurity, straight to the point. We can add in a keyword. So here we've just put in help, and if the keyword is unique, then that's absolutely fine. If it already exists in the database, then we will be given the option there and then to add to the previous keywords so that we're not duplicating data, and that's very important for this design of the chatbot. So it can just continue, and now we are looking at the conversational detail, but in terms of the responses that are given. So again, you can see the chatbot that we're working on, but it's pulled across the detail from the first part of the form. So here you can see the intention help that we put in, and also the examples of questions and statements previously. And in terms of the type of response, you can see with the examples on the right hand side, but essentially we might decide that we want a simple statement as a response from the chatbot. We could have an image added in there. We could have a web link to a page or a particular source that we want to direct the user to. There's the option for having a group of buttons that may offer a choice. So for example, a particular subject within cybersecurity. There's the option to have a question to seek clarifications, where the chatbot may say, did you mean to ask about cybersecurity and not cyberspace? Or finally, we can have an option to capture some form data which might be relevant in some questions that are asked. Then we move on to providing the actual responses. So based on the query question statement that we gave to the chatbot, we now need to provide that response. So if you remember, we asked about getting help for cybersecurity. We can say here, would you like to start by considering email use? So we're asking a bit of a response there, but we're trying to determine what it is that the user would like to specifically know. So we can say, is email a good place to start, or let's start by, if I can type here, by considering types of, no, we'll just make it, let's start by considering email. And then finally there's the option to provide any notes or comments, and where that's useful is for thinking about images or buttons or form data. It gives us the option to provide more specific information into the notes there. So we can submit that and we get a nice little confirmation message. We've got the option to add more detail to the same chatbot, or we can add detail for another chatbot. And finally, and this isn't implemented at the moment, but an idea we have is to reward those who contribute the data to the system by perhaps giving them a certificate for records based on the number of contributions that they may make. So looking at the chatbots menu then, we have the ability to view or verify the existing chatbots of the system, so academics and subject experts would particularly be interested in doing that. We have the option to add new chatbot instances, or we can edit or delete those that exist. Okay, so if we now look at the page for verifying chatbots, you can see here all the chatbots that have been currently added to the system. But just to show you the data that we've just added the chatbot to, our Alison cybersecurity chatbot, we can see some of the data that's previously been recorded. But if we select help as the keyword that we said, you can see the data that we've just input into the chatbot. Now, this is where it's really useful for subject experts and academic colleagues and so on to be able to come in and decide whether what the learner or student or other stakeholder has considered a chatbot would respond. In healthcare, obviously, that sort of data matters. So it could be in this instance we want to change something and we can update it by doing so like this. Finally, within the administration menu, we have options to view reports on users or see an overview of the system as here. But if we look at the option to export the data, now this is where the real power of the system comes in. So any of the data that we've entered in, we can click the export button and it will generate to an external directory all the NLU data files required to be uploaded directly to the chatbot program for training. Thank you very much for listening this afternoon, and of course we would be delighted if you get in touch if you want to find out more.